Hey, friends. So, if we have not been friends for very long, you may not know that I do this annual tradition where every year I keep track of all of the books that I read throughout the year, and I basically do an end of year review. When I was a kid, I grew up with the Book It program from Pizza Hut, so normally I buy myself Pizza Hut at the end of the year and do a little book celebration, and I record an annual review. So this year I read 133 books so that you don't have to. That's down from 180 last year. I don't know what I was doing, but I guess it wasn't reading the way I was reading last year. So, anyways, I don't have like a best or a favorite book from this year, but there are 15 that I flagged that are at least worth talking about. So I'm going to start out with nonfiction real quick. So this is the best nonfiction book that I read this year. It's called The Hidden Life of Trees. It's by Peter Wohlleben. I learned a lot from it, and it tied in well with The Overstory, which was one of my favorite fiction books from 2021. It's about trees and how they actually communicate with each other and relate to each other, and how trees have a lot more going on than you would traditionally think. They're able to communicate danger and other different things to each other, and it's a really it goes into the complexity of their ecosystems and their relationships with each other, and it was really pretty cool. And it makes you feel like the Ents are totally valid. Second favorite nonfiction, The Gene. This is by Siddhartha Mukherjee. It goes into the history of the discovery of the gene and what genetic manipulation in the future could mean for what it, or could go into as to what it means to be human in the future. We could use genetic manipulation to eliminate diseases, but we could also use it to create like superhumans and be a lot more selective. And it kind of warns you of the dangers of that, kind of harkening back to eugenics and, being able to use science for those purposes. So anyways, it's a good read. It's big, but it's good. Then I have a category of fiction based on real events. This one's called The Magic Kingdom. It's by Russell Banks. It reads like an autobiography, but it's fiction, but it's based on real events. It's got an epic feel. I want to say it covers over 50 years of history. It's got some interesting history in it, including, history of different diseases, race relations, and you learn about the origins of the cemetery that exists in Disney World, and the communities that were bumped in order to make room in that swampy area of Orlando, what is now Orlando, to make Disney World. So, Magic Kingdom, Russell Banks. The next one I did not find a copy of in my library, so I'm going to pull up a picture of it. It's called The Dictionary of Lost Words. It's by Pip Williams. It got a lot of clout this year. It goes into, it's a fictionalized telling of the true story of the creation of the Oxford English Dictionary, which I just read the nonfiction book, The Professor and the Madman, which is the nonfiction recollection of this. So this is a fictionalized version that's told through the story, or told through the viewpoint of the daughters of one of the folks that worked in the scriptorium where they wrote the Oxford English Dictionary. And it basically goes into, it's an exploration of how history is written by the victors and the patriarchy. And so it's basically this young woman goes through, over the course of her life, collecting feminine words that were overlooked by the men who were in charge of writing the dictionary and deciding what words were real words and what words were valid. Next category I have is, I categorize this as non-white experiences. I read a good variety of books, and so I'm going to go over these three really quickly. So the first one is Solito. It's by Javier Zamora. This goes into the story of it's a true memoir about an immigrant story. A young boy flees civil war in El Salvador, and it's just the hell that is crossing into the U.S. border. Not only crossing in general and how horrible it is to attempt to make that journey, but the boy is also a young child and he's unaccompanied, and there are no, he doesn't have an adult that he can really trust. So he's, having to decide who's trustworthy, and they are not the people that are being paid to look after him. But a true memoir. The next one I flagged is called Hell of a Book. Jason Mott. Yeah, Jason Mott. This is an interesting one. It's primarily struggling with being Black in America. It's also learning to accept yourself as you are, including your own history. There's a bit about, it hints at but never truly clarifies whether the two parallel stories of the child and the narrator that you're reading at the same time, whether those are actually one character or not. So it's got some hidden history, repressed memories. That's what I'm trying to think of. And it's got like notes of the Invisible Man, for a modern reader. The next one is Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang. That's what it looks like. So I've read a lot of books about race in the last several years, and it takes a lot for a book about race to be to kind of stick and be fresh in my mind, because I go through so many of them, but this one really did it. It was really good. It's a white woman who, it's a good book. Anyway, next. I'm just going to go down a couple of fiction books real quick. I've got 4 that I have honorable mentions from fiction for. This one real quick. It's Remarkably Bright Creatures, Shelby Von Pelt. It's a pleasant read, about relationships between people and the intelligence of octopi and all sorts of fun stuff. The next one is When Women Were Dragons. It's by Kelly Barnhill. I liked the concept of this, and I flagged it because it's a fun concept, but I feel like if we're gonna, it's not like it's reworking anything. It doesn't hold a candle to The Power, which was my favorite book from 2020. But I'm kind of tying the two of them in together because it's basically a book about women, getting not necessarily superpowers, but some kind of power that gives them a one-up over the dominance of men, and what they do with it. And this book was fun, but I still, if you haven't read The Power, read The Power. The next one is The Book of Two Ways by Jodi Picoult. And it feels weird for me to flag a Jodi Picoult book, because I've read a fair amount of them, and not that she's not great. They're all, pretty profound, and she chooses challenging concepts on purpose, and she does it. She handles them really well. But this one was, not that it's outstanding, but it just was outstanding as far as the quality of books that I read this year. I don't know. I'm running out of books, I guess. This one's kind of like the movie Sliding Doors, where you see the parallel storyline playing out based on 2 potential outcomes of one decision. But you don't have to look at Gwyneth Paltrow. So that's that. And not the last one of the fiction. Next one, Clara and the Sun. Glare. Kazuo Ishiguro. It's another fun futuristic exploration about genetically enhanced humans and the future possibilities of AI. And I should have flagged that one a little higher, I think, because it really was a good read. So really big endorsement for this one, Clara and the Sun. The next one is, this one's very popular, so I'm sure that you've seen it. It's Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. Bonnie Garmus. It's a good read. It made me respect, home ec and the things that I do at home for my family as a feminine pursuit. The miniseries, the television show, is good. I read a great nonfiction book a couple of years ago that has similar themes. It's the Secret History of Home Economics by Danielle Dreilinger. So I wanted to throw that in there. So if you liked that, try the nonfiction. I flagged 2 classics this year. The first one is one that's been on my to-read list for a while. It's A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith, and it holds up to the hype. If you struggled to like Little Women, this is one of those that goes through, over the course of a woman's life, kind of similar to that, where it has those home family, like micro interactions within the home and the family. The difference is that she struggles with poverty in a different way to what they struggled in poverty with in Little Women. And it's a good framing of what life looked like in Brooklyn during that late 1800s, early 1900s era for an average person. We read a lot of books about people with like an obscene amount of money during that time frame, and this was a nice little capture of what it looked like to be a regular person. The next classic that I'm going to flag, this is controversial, Lolita. Vladimir Nabokov. Sorry, the library only had the audiobook. I don't know why, but whatever. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. I struggled at first over whether to read this at all, because apparently what I've heard from other people who've read it is that you'll sympathize with the narrator, and then you'll hate yourself for sympathizing with the narrator because of the pedophile thing. But it's one of the earlier examples of the unreliable narrator, which I enjoy as a general tool in narrative fiction. And so I went for it. And personally, that must be a FedEx delivery. I don't know if you can hear my dog. Personally, I did not find it challenging whatsoever to remember that the narrator is a psychopath and a pedophile who killed a child's mother so that he could rule over her and rape her. I don't know. Didn't find it difficult. Overall, it's not that stunning of a book. It's really not meh. But it's, I don't know. It gets a lot of clout, and I did not have the whole thing where it sucks you in and it makes you feel like sympathy for the narrator. It just didn't happen to me. It wasn't that great, but it's still not the worst book I read this year. That honor goes to The Candy House by Jennifer Egan. It's the worst book I read this year. This woman, okay, the author got a Pulitzer a few years ago. Pulitzer Prize. And then wrote this. It's not a horrible book. See, it was just disappointing for what it didn't do. The concept is fun. The concept is basically everybody has the opportunity to upload their entire existence, like all of their memories and everything that their whole perspective of what they're living today, to, a massive server. And when you upload, in exchange, you get to view everybody else's memories and existence and perspective. The multitude of storylines and characters were just not engaging to me. And I stuck with it and kept reading it and kept going through it because it takes a lot to be able to weave in so many different storylines in parallel. It takes a ton of effort to be able to do that, where you're writing multiple narratives at the same time and you're tying them in together. So I'm waiting for the magic moment where everything comes back and you realize why you've been reading all of these different stories. And that moment, that climax never happened for me. You just have a whole bunch of stories that you're reading, and it's an exploration of what the world would look like if we all shared the same experiences. So honestly, if you have Black Mirror in the back of your head, that's what this is like, where you're getting a whole bunch of storylines that start and end within one full, you know, 1 hour basically, but you get more for your hour's investment if you watch Black Mirror. Unfortunately, it's rare that I recommend film or television over reading, but skip it. That's all. Okay. 15 books, 15 minutes. Man, I'm getting better at this. Okay. All right. That's it. I will see you guys next year. I'm going to go have pizza. Love you. Bye.